Sports is what we do.
You're in your car, you're in your house, you're wherever you are. You're a sports fan.
97.3 ESPN.
Because if you weren't a sports fan, you wouldn't be listening.
WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Thursday edition of Game Night, and the Phillies are winning for now. 8th inning, Phillies got 2 men on, 1 out, 5-4 ball game. We will keep you updated as this is the final game of their series with the Diamondbacks. You know, I told you guys coming into this series, I thought they could win 2 out of 4 games. Well, now the Phillies might exceed my expectations and get 3 out of 4 before they head to Oakland and deal with the less talented A's team. Even though the A's did have a 6-game winning streak basically there. They beat up on Tampa for a couple of games. So it'll be at least, not easy. Won't be a pushover team necessarily. But right now, Phillies are trying to wrap up this Arizona series, winning 3 out of 4. Like I said, 2 men on, 5-4 lead in the 8th inning. We'll keep you updated. And coming up in less than 20 minutes, Frank Close, our Phillies insider over at 973ESPN.com, will join us coming up to talk about the Phillies and the state of the team because, we've been having a lot of debate, not just on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, but also here on Game Night with yours truly, Josh Hennig, here on 973 ESPN about what is this Phillies team moving forward? What do they really need? Because they're not a perfect team. I think anyone can agree that this is not a team that has it all figured out. But can they be a team that does a little bit more to get better for the long run? They obviously need more right-handed hitting. They obviously need some more starting pitching help. Now, if you were listening to Mike Gill, the Sports Bash earlier, the news came out that it looks like Christian Sanchez is going to be the starter for Saturday. Is that enough to hold this team over for the next month, let's say? Is Sanchez a guy that can give you 4 or 5 starts between now and the trade deadline till you're able to go out and get somebody else to fill that void? Maybe. Sanchez is an interesting guy, and we'll ask Frank Close more about him because I think Sanchez is a guy that may be serviceable because you look at what he's doing in the minor leagues. He was not all bad. The ERA is bloated from 2 starts. I double-checked it. He has 1 start giving up 5 runs, 1 start giving up 7 runs. The rest of the starts he's actually doing pretty good. So if you're a guy if you can come to the Phillies and you're Sanchez and you give the Phillies 5 innings for about 4 or 5 starts and only allow an average of 3 to 4 runs in those games, well, you're winning today's game 5-4. Why can't you win those games as well? And for as much as I've criticized Aaron Nola, he just proved to be the most Jekyll and Hyde pitcher of all time today. Aaron Nola, I don't understand what's going on with this guy. Is it really as simple as the pitch clock is messing with him? Is it fully mental? Is it mechanical? It doesn't look like it's mechanical to me, but I am no pitching mechanics expert. So I can't act like I'm some, hey, I used to pitch. Saying I pitched in high school is the equivalent of saying that I attended English class. Of course I attended English class. If you play enough high school sports, you've played and you hung around, you probably pitched a few times at some point just because maybe your team wasn't that good, right? So I'm not going to act like I'm a pitching expert. But what I will say is maybe the mental game is a problem for Nola. Maybe the problem for Nola is that this pitch clock situation has, messed with his head so much that when he does get into a rut, when he does start having problems as, a game goes along, he has less time to decompress and recalibrate mentally. as the Phillies waste a bases loaded opportunity in the 8th inning, and now will be to the bottom of the 8th. Still have a 5-4 lead with the Diamondbacks coming to bat. So I'll keep you updated here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. You guys can chime in. What do you think? Do the Phillies need a right-handed bat to play first base? Do they need another pitcher? 609-403-0973. And in the spirit of trades, we're also getting a little bit more about the NBA offseason, because looking at the offseason as we go along, it's seeming like more and more that the 76ers are going to make some sort of move or two to improve this roster. Now, we don't know what those moves are going to be necessarily, because let's be realistic. If we all knew what Daryl Morey was going to do when the Sixers first hired him a few years ago, I think people would have been much more on board with him being the general manager. But you didn't know that they were going to unload Al Horford and Josh Richardson, and they were going to get rid of Ben Simmons for a legitimate player. I mean, there are people. I mean, listen, I'm here every day with Mike Yell, and I can't tell you how many times people texted in to the Sports Bash, and they were saying, trade Ben Simmons for a bag of balls, trade Ben Simmons for anyone. I don't care what you get. Well, you got somebody legitimate in James Harden. And despite my own personal feelings about Harden and my frustrations, look, Harden's a future Hall of Famer. And Harden is a former league MVP, and he led this league in scoring when he was in Houston, and he led the league in assists in Philadelphia. I think if you're a Sixer fan, you got to give Daryl Morey a ton of credit that he got something for Ben Simmons. Now, did you give up a lot to get Harden because of Ben Simmons' value was depreciating? Yes. Okay. I will not deny that reality. But still, if Morey was able to do those things, and I'm assuming he's going to be able to do more, and you look at how the rumor mill is shaping up, you know, it's sounding more and more like a couple of trades are going to happen in the NBA draft, which you can hear right here on 97.3 ESPN next Thursday night following game night here on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. I think Morey is a guy who he does have something in common with Dave Dombrowski, in which is they both are guys who are willing to look at their sports in a way that maybe the rest of us are not thinking about at all. I think that when you look at Daryl Morey and you look at Dave Dombrowski, you have two executives who have shown you a unique ability to go out and get players that we did not anticipate they could get. I mean, Philly fans were over the moon last year that they got rid of Mickey Moniak. Now, Mickey Moniak's playing a lot better with the Angels, but you still got an upgrade here in Philadelphia and Brandon March. You could argue that both players have really benefited from switching towns. Moniak is playing much better for the Angels, and March is playing much better here. So it actually ended up being almost like a win-win for both teams. But again, everybody wanted you to get rid of Moniak. Everybody wanted you to dump and be done with the Odubel Herrera experiment, right? And they did both those things. Daryl Morey, he found ways to recalibrate a roster. So, frankly, I think that when you look at this, the Phillies heading up to the deadline, they are in a similar conversation as the Sixers. You have two executives who have a history of being creative, who are going to find a way to get the job done. Now, I'm not going to say they're going to be like Howie Roseman and completely pull a rabbit out of the hat, because that's the Howie Roseman specialty right there. But I do believe that I think we need to be patient with Morey and with Dombrowski moving forward, because I think they both have the ability to, create something that was not there previously. They can see things that the rest of us can't. Remember, they got those deadline deals done right at the end of the day last year. Could be the same deal this year. And for the Sixers, look, who am I to say that Tobias Harris doesn't have value? I mean, you traded Ben Simmons for James Harden, basically. I mean, that in and of itself has got to be a little impressive for you guys, right? Like I said, I don't want James Harden back, but anyone who knows basketball knows that James Harden for Ben Simmons in any capacity, that's a win. That's a serious win. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973. That's where you join the conversation. Jeff in Ocean City chimes in. He says, if the Phillies fail to make the playoffs, would they consider another manager? I don't think the Phillies are not going to make the playoffs. I think that something has to go grotesquely wrong for this team not to make the playoffs. I don't think that changing the manager is a solution at all for anything. The Phillies don't. How do I say this in a concise way? If we are to believe that the manager is the reason why the Phillies are not playing well, then you're ignoring all the other factors that go into this. You lost 30 home runs out of your lineup for the year with no Rhys Hoskins, and you have struggled to replace that. Gregory Soto has been hit or miss. Sir Anthony Dominguez has not been as good as he was last year. Craig Kimbrell started the year out slow, got better as it went along. You're basically on your fourth or fifth first baseman in Cody Clemens. I mean, you started the year without Harper, and he's not exactly found his groove yet. Trey Turner spent half the year not hitting well. I don't think any of those things have anything to do with the manager. I don't think that any of those things you look at Rob Thompson and say, this is your fault. If we put somebody else in your job, they're going to get something different out of these guys. If the Phillies don't make the playoffs this year, something went sideways with this team, whether it was an injury or whether it was just guys completely underachieving. I think that's what the reality is, because the National League is not deep. We've gone over this, a couple different times in the last few weeks, and that is, you look at the teams around the Phillies in the wild card race. In the wild card race, the Phillies and the Reds and the Brewers and the Marlins and the Mets all have a negative run differential. And what that means is that all of them have either had struggle at scoring, like the Marlins have, or the pitching staff has struggled immensely, like the Reds have, like the Mets have. Realistically, when you look at the wild card standings, the only teams that have scored more runs than the Phillies that are around them in the standings are the Dodgers, who are really good, the Giants, who, they're a Jekyll and Hyde team as well. And that's pretty much it. There's nobody else on this list that scored more runs than the Phillies, and that's with the Phillies lineup struggling as it has this year. Marlins have scored fewer runs. Brewers have scored fewer runs. Oh, here it is. The Reds, they've scored more runs as well. Padres haven't scored more runs. Padres should have one of the best offenses in all of baseball with Bogarts and Soto and all those guys out there, and they've scored less runs than the Phillies have. Now, the Padres pitching staff is way better than yours. But guess what? The Phillies are 8-2 in the last 10 games. So they're finding their groove. So to me, I don't see a reason why you can't be in this wild card race and get into the postseason. Because I'm going to go off the assumption that the Marlins are going to start slowing down. The Brewers are in a slide altogether. I don't think the Reds are sustainable at all. I mean, the Reds have allowed 352 runs this year. So for me, I look at the standings in the wild card as a clear sign that this team can make the postseason. And if they don't make the postseason for the Phillies, then, like I said, something went really wrong for this team. All right, we'll get more of your text messages a little bit later this hour. Keep them coming in, 609-403-0973. That is the text board. And also your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank. See how coming up next, we'll talk Phillies baseball with our Phillies insider from 97.3 ESPN.com. Frank Close will join us, covering the Phillies over on our website. Phillies currently lead 5-4, bottom of the eighth, 2 outs. We'll see if they can get out of this mess with Sir Anthony Dominguez here. Actually, I'll hang out for one more pitch with you guys on the radio here. All right, Dominguez threw an out pitch. So we'll get to the results of this at bat on the other side. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Thursday night on 97.3 ESPN.
With the 7th pick, the Denver Nuggets select Jamal Murray.
With the 41st pick, the Denver Nuggets select Nikola Jokic.
Who's next?
The number 1 pick in the 2023 NBA draft goes to the San Antonio Spurs.
The 2023 NBA Draft. Coverage begins next Thursday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on ESPN. The NBA Draft, exclusively on 97.3 ESPN FM. South Jersey's sports leader.
Homeowners trust Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Business owners trust Jenkins, too, for light commercial services. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Call Jenkins. One call does it all. For new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, oil service, plumbing, and drain cleaning services. Call now and learn about rebates through the HVAC Energy Efficiency Program, brought to you by South Jersey Gas. Call 609-641-6262 or visit jenkinsandsons.com.
Small business owners, we know finishing your to-do list can feel like climbing a mountain, but that mountain is also covered in banana peels. Then when something new gets added to your list, you're like, nope, I'm already climbing this huge, super slippery banana peel mountain of a to-do list. At Progressive, we don't want to make your day any harder. That's why we make it easy to manage your policy on our mobile app, so climbing that banana peel mountain feels more like a leisurely stroll. See if you can save on commercial auto insurance in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Coverage subject to policy terms and conditions.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot, but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
If you're hiring, it can feel like trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. Like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Now try ZipRecruiter free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/FREE.
Oh, yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
Why pay retail or over MSRP for a new vehicle? Get to Matt Blatt Nissan and take $9,000 off any 2023 Nissan Armada, Harrier, or Titan in stock. Or put 0 down, pay 0% financing, and make 0 payments for 90 days on every Matt Blatt Nissan Rogue in stock. Plus, if you're currently stuck in a loan or lease, AJ the Trade Man can get you released, no matter the make, model, or mileage. Then drive home in your new Nissan Rogue with 0 down and 0% financing, or 0 payments for 90 days on every Nissan Rogue for 36 months, even 0% for 60 months. And of course, the Matt Blatt Nissan Peace of Mind 4-day love it or leave it return policy. Only at MattBlattNissan.com. On approved Tier 1 credit through NEMAC. Negative equity will refinance the new vehicle plus tax tag and $500.
Offers can't be combined. Call 877-289-6670 or go to mattblattnissan.com for complete details. Offer ends 7/5/2023.
It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Don't forget Game Night being brought to you by Jenkins and Sons. One call does it all. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Just call 609-641-6440 and visit them online at jenkinsandsons.com. Don't be caught having to call multiple people when Jenkins Plumbing, Heat, and Air Conditioning has you covered all year long. jenkinsandsons.com. Well, the good news is the Phillies got out of the last inning without any damage taken. They still hold a 5-4 lead as this game is turning into a bit of a chess match. Frank Close joins us, covers the Phillies for 97.3 ESPN.com. Frank, I came into this series expecting them to split 2 out of 4, and they might get 3 out of 4 in this series. What has your takeaway been so far in this rematch with the Diamondbacks?
I don't remember this Diamondbacks team. I thought they were better. I really did. I think we're seeing some of the holes that the Diamondbacks have. I mean, let's face it, there are a lot of teams out there that started off strong and kind of fell off a little bit. The Pittsburgh Pirates, for example. I think there's often a lot of new momentum at the beginning of a season, and the teams that maybe are playing above their heads a little bit are coming down to earth a little bit. I think, and maybe similarly, the Phillies, who are very talented, are kind of coming back up to where they belong a little bit too. So it's nice to see the Phillies back at the 500 mark. This win would be a big win because that puts them obviously on the winning side of things, and it can really help them start to move forward, because right now, with so many teams bunched together, kind of at or around the 500 mark, it'd be nice if the Phillies, now that they're here, they can start to get above that and be very quick to ascend up that ladder to playoff contention.
Mike Gill and I were debating earlier about Aaron Nola. I'm just going to start calling him Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde because, I mean, the guy gets 9 strikeouts today, but he also gave up 4 runs, and I don't know if it's his mechanics. I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to judge a guy's pitching mechanics, but there's obviously something going on where coming into this start, Frank, this was the first time since 2015 he has not had more strikeouts and innings pitched in the season. So it's like, obviously something is affecting this guy's ability to go out there and give you productive outings.
Well, 2 things this year seem to be affecting him. First is the pitch clock. That's something he has not seemed to respond well to in 2023. Something happened today where he probably had a clock violation and wasn't really apparent to everybody. Ended up walking one of his, actually was his final batter, actually, where he was charged with that extra ball. He doesn't seem comfortable with that. And also, he's not been pitching that well out of the stretch. So if he's got nobody on, he pitches a lot better than someone gets on. So you saw today, a couple get on, and there goes the 3-run home run. And then all of a sudden, the lead evaporated. So he seems to be struggling with those 2 different things, pitch clock and pitching out of the stretch. The stretch thing's more a mechanical thing. The pitch clock, that's something you need to mentally adapt to. And he just seems to have not adapted to that just yet.
If he hasn't adapted to it yet, and it's June 15th, is there concern that he will ever adapt to it?
Well, depends if you think 3 months is enough. I don't know. I mean, if it's rattling him too much, I mean, it's just one of those things that you just have to deal with. There's nothing you can do about it. Everybody's subject to that, and I understand people around the league are struggling with that too. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sure when there's a big change like this, some guys will respond better to it than others, but this is 3 months in, and so he's got to get it together sometime soon, right?
I will try my best to present to you what Mike Gill and I were debating about earlier, Frank, and that is Mike has the position that this team got to the World Series because they had a power right-handed bat in the lineup, and that they're missing Hoskins so much that they have to get another right-handed bat in the lineup. My position is, I think getting another starting pitcher is more important than using the assets to get, fill in the blank right-handed hitter in this lineup. And I would rather you go out and get, just throw a name out there, Lucas Giolito, for example, than using assets to get fill in the blank right-handed bat. I feel like it's easier to find a right-handed bat to platoon with Clemens or Derek Hall than it is to find a legitimate pitcher. And Mike feels like it's better to just get a random fifth starter to fill the void and bridge you to the postseason.
Love how you frame it, right? So Mike is calling for a random fifth starter. I don't know.
Well, like for example, he was saying like, you could go get like a Zach Greinke, and have him go out there every fifth day until Andrew Painter comes up, for example, or like how they're having Christopher Sanchez show up this Saturday.
I think you need both. You really need a pitcher. You need a bat. The thing that we lose the most with Hoskins looking at this lineup is his ability to take a lot of pitches. He was in the middle of that lineup, and even when he was struggling, even when he was having his bad stretches, and we all know he was streaky, right? He'd go on a tear for 2 weeks, and he might be quiet for 10 days. But even when he was quiet, he saw a lot of pitches. He still walked. And seeing those this is a pitch count game right now, right? So the moment you hit 100, that's the magic number where you're going to blow up, I guess, into whatever. So that's 10%. He could do 10% of a guy's entire pitch count for the day in one at bat. Sometimes, his second at bat in, 20% of the pitches the guy's going to throw for the day. So I think they missed that. I do think they missed some of the power from the right side, but I think more of it is his presence, and I think that matters. I think you're seeing a Phillies team that's learning how to live without him. But all that said, I would like to see another right-handed bat in this lineup somewhere at some position. I think they have some flexibility here. If Bryce Harper does play first base, then you can put somebody in the outfield and bump Schwarber to DH. You can find somebody to play first base. You can find somebody to play third base and say to Alec Boehm, especially if it's a temporary solution, you can say to Boehm, hey, listen, we love all you're doing at third base, and he's really shown great strides. But if you say to someone like Boehm, hey, can you kind of hang out at first base for the rest of the year so that we can get somebody to fill out this line? He's a team player. He's going to say yes, absolutely. So, but I think they need both. I would add one bat, and I would add preferably at a position where there could be some defensive help too. Try to minimize the defensive effect of having both. Well, I would say Castellanos has been better. At this point I would say Schwarber is the weakest link on the field. If you can find an outfielder, you can find a first baseman, third baseman that plays good defense. I think you're good. So that gives them a lot of options. I don't think they have to give up a ton for the offensive player. You will have to give up a ton for someone like Lucas Giolito. That is, if the White Sox trade him, and because we saw with this Phillies team, you just took one hot streak to get them back on track. The White Sox probably projected to be a lot better than they are. They go on a little bit of a winning streak, they could be right back in it. So it's kind of hard to say and to assume that someone like that will be available. And really, thanks to everybody being all bunched up in the middle, there's not going to be a whole lot available. So you might have to settle for that fifth starter that Mike was talking about. Not because that's what you want to get. It might be that's the only thing you can get.
What kind of assets do the Phillies actually have to make any trades? I think it's the other side of this equation. That is, the reason why someone like me keeps saying either or is because, Frank, I don't know the minor league system that well, but I feel like I was looking through the list a couple of days ago, the pipeline list, and I'm like, I don't even know who half these guys even are. I'm like looking up, like, where did this guy come from? Was he even drafted? Like, I feel like, when the Phillies got Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay years ago, right? Everyone knew who, Kyle Drabek and Lou Marson was, right? Because we heard about them numerous times. I feel like outside of Painter, Abel, and McGarry, nobody knows who's even in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I think part of that has to do with the fact that 2020 there was not a minor league season, and so you didn't get the opportunity to hear about them like you do usually. And a lot of those players that were at the upper levels at that point, they were like the Veerlings of the world that came up and helped, the Matons of the world that were the major league helpers. But in terms of big prospects, it definitely did kind of that missed season really did help take a year out of people's consciousness, I think. But the Phillies do have some things to trade. Johan Rojas is someone who comes to mind, who's an outfield prospect, center fielder prospect, plays probably a major league glove in the outfield right now, kind of working his way up to the major leagues. He's somebody who MLB Pipeline projected could be a 2023 outfielder in the major league. So he could be somebody that would interest a team. Right now he's at Double-A Reading. I think he's somebody that they could trade. I think if you're going to trade one of the pitching prospects, if it's an Abel or McGarry, you need to make sure that you get years of control beyond this year. I think the Phillies would be willing to, like they did with Spencer Howard the other year, right? They were trading Spencer Howard with the idea that they were getting Kyle Gibson for the following year as well. Not, and again, that wasn't Kyle Gibson was not a top starting pitcher by any means, but at least you knew that you would have a rotation spot kind of covered the following year. And I think that's important for this Phillies team because, we're talking about Aaron Nola a little while ago. He's a free agent to be. Couldn't agree to a deal before the season. And let's be honest, he probably has not raised his value this year. So this could be a situation where the Phillies decide it's prudent to walk. But they have Rojas. I think he could get you somebody. If Mickey Moniak can get you a starting pitcher last year, Rojas can get you one this year. Simone Muzziotti hitting the cover off the ball, AAA, another outfield prospect. Feels like he's been around forever, but he's still very, very young. Could help a major league team soon. And you know what? I think even if you're adding a bat, somebody would be interested in Derek Hall if you're a team that's rebuilding. If he was probably not the only piece to get you the bat, but he's got a low salary. He's got some pop, especially if you're bringing in somebody from the right side. I think the Phillies are not devaluing Hall if they say to a team, "Hey, listen, we got this great guy from the left side. We need the right side. Maybe we'll give him up if we get the right bat from the right side." I think he's got some value in him too. So he might be the type of player that could be traded. And there are plenty of other prospects here. We didn't see a lot of one or two prospects on any team traded last year. I think we're in an era where people overvalue the prospects. And so it's really hard to pry away somebody's prospects right now. So that has actually lowered the cost of acquisition for a lot of pieces that could help the Phillies.
It's interesting. Well, I was with Frank Close, our Phillies insider from 973 ESPN.com. Phillies mailbag every Tuesday on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 973 ESPN. It's funny you mentioned Derek Hall, Frank, because I was just talking with Mike Gill earlier today about how Cody Clemens has a lot of versatility compared to Derek Hall. Like, he could play multiple positions. I know he's played second base most of his life. He's played games in the outfield. So, keeping him actually makes sense on this team, even if you found a full-time first baseman. So maybe trading Derek Hall does make a lot of sense because Cody Clemens has shown you that he has value to stay.
Yeah, I think so. Cody Clemens, I don't know that he's known for his defense. In fact, my introduction to Cody Clemens, the first time I appeared at spring training this year, he was on the field with the infielders, taking ground balls, like with the shortstops and second baseman on the Phillies roster. So, I think the Phillies would, if I had to say, I would say they'd have other people they would want to put at shortstop first. I think they would put Edmundo Sosa there first. But yeah, he could stick around. I guess it depends if they have the roster spot. So, one thing they haven't really figured out with Clemens, I don't think they would consider him a starter at this point, but I think they're showing him enough as almost a platoon bat that, they have to really think this through with Derek Hall. But, at the end of the day, I think they need to figure out if Hall is going to be a major league starting player. And the only way to do that is to get him up here and play. So I could see them bringing him in soon. If you option Clemens, I think it's almost cruel, but you know what, that happens in Major League Baseball sometime. The guy who's got the minor league options goes to the minor leagues when you need to make some space, and he's still in your organization for when you need him later.
By the way, the Phillies officially win the game 5-4. Craig Kimbrell gets the save as they win 3 out of 4 against the Diamondbacks, and they can now move on to Oakland for a 3-game set. Couple more for Frank Close before we let him go. Frank talked about Christopher Sanchez. Looks like he's going to start Saturday's game in Oakland. He's, considering really nobody's pitching great in the minor leagues, the guys have basically 2 bad starts, and the rest of his time AAA has actually been solid. So I don't hate the move, honestly.
Yeah, I think it was time to give him a shot again. Dylan Covey wasn't giving them much of anything at all. And even when he stuck around on the roster as a bullpen arm, those couple games he pitched 2 innings and gave up 2 runs apiece. So there's really nothing you're gaining from that. And yeah, looking at Sanchez, he's had his rough moments. He's kind of gotten better. He's got a 2.25 ERA in his June starts. May he was 5.40, but the latter part of the month looked like he started to get things together a little bit. So I think it's worth a shot. He's come up as a spot starter before. He's gotten you 5 innings and maybe gave up a few runs. That would be amazing right now, given what the Phillies are dealing with. And these bullpen games are absolutely killing the Phillies. And it's not just the game itself, right? Because the last 2 bullpen games, they won one of them, right? And you say, oh, your 5th starter wins you every other start. That's great. Well, guess what? Then the bullpen is taxed for 3 and 4 days. I will say Luis Ortiz coming in yesterday, giving them 3 innings to get the old-fashioned save. So despite having a large lead, that was big for this Phillies team because it enabled the relievers to rest for the next day. That's been really hard to do because if you use everybody in the bullpen game, and the Phillies focused on the back end of their bullpen the last bullpen game because they were trying to keep the front half fresh. That doesn't help, and then you end up losing a game that you probably could have won many other days. And we could be talking about a 4-game sweep now, right? Instead of winning 3 out of 4, and that's a big difference. So they got to do something. I realize that Christopher Sanchez is probably not an exciting name, but at this point he's the next man up, and I got to think that at least from his past record in the major leagues, he'll give you more than we've seen out of that 5th spot pretty much all year.
Frank, a couple quick questions for you coming in from the listeners. James wants to know on the DMs, do you think the Phillies can go get a guy like Marcus Stroman?
Well, it depends on, one, if he's for trade. No, the Cubs were having a pretty decent season. They're not realistically they're not expected to contend, but they've had their moments. He has looked good, for the Cubs. He's 7-4 with a 2.42 ERA. That would sound pretty good instead of the Phillies 5th starter so far. I think with a guy like Stroman, that's a bigger name like that. I think somebody like that is going to have a lot of people interested, and when you have a lot of people interested, the price goes up. Are the Phillies willing to be the highest bidder for somebody like that? I don't know. You could insert the name Giolito too, if he's for trade. It's going to be expensive in prospect terms. Certainly the Phillies should inquire if he's available. I would hope that they are engaged in seeing what possible deal they could make. But at the same time, my expectations are kind of like last year at the deadline, where Noah Syndergaard for Mickey Moniak was the best pitching trade that they could make. Why? Because lots of people were out for pitching. This year's not going to be any different. In fact, more teams are in it right now. More teams are going to want pitching. So I think Marcus Stroman would be a really nice addition. He's somebody I like a whole lot. In fact, I had hoped the Phillies might have picked him up a couple years ago because I thought he would be somebody who could help them. But I just don't know that they, like last year, are ready to clear out a lot of prospects for a pitcher. If they can, and here's the thing about the Phillies, we saw this last year. Dave Dombrowski basically came to the conclusion that, all right, if we get into the playoffs, our front half of the roster is good enough that we can maybe go deep, right? Your fifth starter is not going to pitch in the playoffs, period, right? So in some respects, you can get away without adding a top starter. If you happen to be able to get one, that's awesome. But if Wheeler and Nola are pitching well, there's your front half of a rotation. Suarez, I guess a lot depends on Taijuan Walker, but I don't think they need to add the big dominant arm. I think what we're seeing based upon the Phillies record when the fifth spot comes up, that they would look a lot better right now if they had someone who could win half the games. And I think that would be fine.
One more for you, Frank. George in Summers Point wants to know, do you think that the Phillies' support and efforts for Dick Allen are actually going to get him into the Hall of Fame? And do you think Dick Allen should have already been in the Hall of Fame?
I really thought that last vote he was going to get in. I think, they knew he wasn't well. They knew that there was probably a limited window to retire his number and get him there. So they made sure that happened. And, he didn't see the next vote. In fact, when he passed away, I thought, oh man, he's not going to see the day he was named a Hall of Famer. And I really thought it was going to happen the next time. So I do believe he is absolutely deserving. I really hope that someday the Veterans Committee will believe that as well. And, it's even more than his stats, just all that he went through as a player of color in that era. And certainly that didn't help him in the day perform to his ability. And with all that he went through while he was trying to play baseball, I think I really absolutely believe he deserves it. And if there's a guy named Mark Carfagno who has really been taking up the cause of Dick Allen over the years, I encourage you to Google him, just because he's laid it all out. And I could do a deep dive sometime with you, but I think the numbers support it. And for those other reasons, I think he is absolutely a Hall of Famer. And if justice takes place, he will be a Hall of Famer next time the Veterans Committee meets.
I mean, I've always gone under the assumption that because Dick Allen didn't always play for good teams, that people kind of held against him, his standing in the game. It's not like his numbers were like, they weren't as good as fill in the blank guy. Like, no one was going to be Willie Mays. No one was going to be Hank Aaron. So it's like people have this like unrealistic standard where you could argue his numbers are better than a lot of guys playing baseball right now. So, I think that it's the whole, hey, he didn't play on good teams, or a lot of people didn't see him back in the day, so they don't appreciate what he brought to the table. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, very, very, and again, this was at a time in history where people were hostile to people of color, so maybe a lot of fans didn't give him the time of day, and so, but I don't know. I'm looking at his numbers. I think he absolutely, especially by today's standards, deserves that Hall of Fame opportunity. I believe he belongs in the Hall of Fame, and I really do hope he gets that opportunity.
I always chuckle when I look at the baseball reference for a similarity score. The guys who he's most similar to are, according to Baseball Reference, Ryan Braun and Lance Berkman. I mean, I don't even know what to do with that.
Well, I don't know. That's hard to say. I don't know. I don't know if I like those comparisons.
I don't like him at all. I think it's ridiculous. I mean,
yeah. I don't know how they calculate that, but that's it's a great point.
Yeah, they have a whole. But this is the problem with analytics. I'll let you go, Frank. I gotta get going. But like, it's the idea that we're only basing it on numbers, and it's like, well, if it's only based on numbers, like, for example, Jim Rice would have been in the Hall of Fame way before he got in, right? But instead, a lot of these voters are voting for things that don't really matter, because the Baseball Hall of Fame, it's a museum. It's not, an opportunity for somebody to have like a vendetta against people. I think that's part of the problem here.
Yeah, and by the way, if you look at their most similar by ages, I mean, there's a lot of names on there that are Hall of Famers too. So I think there's a case to be made, and yeah, Dick Allen at the very least, Phillies legend. And by the way, that if you want to look at what Mark has to say, he does have a blog. It's frogsblog.com, frogs-blog.com. That's his nickname, Froggy. But Mark has laid it out over the years. He is the guy to look at to follow the Hall of Fame pursuit of Dick Allen, and I encourage everybody to check it out.
Check out Frank Close on Twitter at Frank Close. Phillies mailbag every Tuesday on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Frank, appreciate you jumping on today.
Always good to talk to you, Josh.
Josh Hennick here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle. We'll get to more of your texts on the other side. 609-403-0973. That is the text board. And you also could DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle.
You haven't downloaded the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app? Well, go get it now to follow all the Philly sports teams at 97.3ESPN.com, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
No matter the make, no matter the mileage, no matter what you owe, Matt Blatt Kia wants your vehicle today. We need to replenish our inventory, so we need your vehicle, no matter what your situation is. Even if you're stuck in a loan or a lease, Matt Blatt Kia wants to get you released. Get cash for your car today. Even if you don't buy a car from us and don't pay high interest rates, get to Matt Blatt Kia and drive home a brand new Kia with super low APR financing and zero down payment on every new Kia in stock. Plus, with Matt Blatt Kia's certified lenders, we finance your future, not your past. Even first-time buyers can drive with peace of mind with our exclusive 4-day love it or leave it return policy. So bring any trade during Kia's summer sales event.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
With approved credit, not all will qualify. Go to mattblattkia.com for complete details or 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, taxes, Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
Texting enrolls you in recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Tired of wasting your money on testosterone booster products that just don't work? We don't blame you. That's why Nugenix Total T lets you try before you buy. Just text HOT to 369-369 to claim your complimentary sample. Why have millions of men already trusted Nugenix for a man-boosting increase in their testosterone levels? Well, nothing else is like it. It contains a patented key ingredient shown to work. Nugenix Total T boosts free and total testosterone levels to help you feel better at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom. It's the #1 doctor-recommended brand and #1 at GNC and #1 at Walmart. But don't take our word for it. Try before you buy. If it works, keep using it. If not, keep the sample. You've got nothing to lose, but you could gain energy, muscle, drive, even more passion. Text HOT to 369-369. Do it now, and we'll also send you a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, our newest, most powerful fat burner ever. Absolutely free. Text HOT to 369-369.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're starting to speak another language, like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right.
If you want to learn a language, there's no faster, easier, better way than
Babbel.
Babbel.
Babbel. Go to Babbel.com to try for free. That's BABBEL.com. Babbel.com.
Hey, it's Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow, and I'm exploring exciting destinations all around New Jersey, sponsored by the New Jersey Division of Travel and Tourism. We're off to the Mile Square City, Hoboken, an emerging hotspot for trendy restaurants and bars, eclectic shopping, and rich culture. Very walkable, Hoboken's a great place to play tourist. Grab a slice of cake at the original Carlos Bake Shop, pay your respects to Old Blue Eyes at Sinatra Park, and soak in the amazing views along the Hudson waterfront. Find your perfect New Jersey getaway with ideas and a free travel guide at visitnj.org.
Now, more free mobile app.
All right, get more text messages. Text messages before we get out of here on the Power Hour known as Game Night, brought to you by Jenkins and Sons, One call does it all. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, the plumbing guy. Jenkins has got you covered. 609-641-6440. And visit them online at jenkinsandsons.com. A couple things before we get out of here. I want to follow up on the George Summers Point, Dick Allen thing. You know, I did want to get into a super long conversation with Frank about it. I don't think Dick Allen is absent from the Hall of Fame because of his skin color. I want to put that on the record. I believe Dick Allen's not in the Hall of Fame because sports has shown us that the people who are voting for the Baseball Hall of Fame have these ridiculous biases that don't make sense. You know, they put Harold Baines in the Hall of Fame, but Dick Allen's not in the Hall of Fame. That's the problem with this entire system. You put a guy in Harold Baines who was a good, not great player. Harold Baines, what's his claim to fame? He was a 6-time All-Star. He's a good player. Do you have 3,000 hits? No. A lot of home runs? No. Do you play 22 years? Yeah. You put him in the Hall of Fame. Dick Allen, Rookie of the Year, AL MVP, 7-time All-Star. And you look at his most productive years, he was one of the best power hitting players of his era. Now, he didn't have the extended career of elite production that other players of his era did. So I don't personally think it's a skin color thing. I think it's because these people who are voting for these people to go in the Hall of Fame, they walk into these voting ballots, and they bring these irrational and stupid biases with them. There's no reason why Harold Baines should be in the Hall of Fame and Dick Allen isn't. Period. Texter chimed in and says Mark Burley should be getting more Hall of Fame love. He started at least 30 games every year. He was a Gold Glove winner, all-time leader in pickoffs, over 200 wins. Yeah, Burley's got 214 career wins. To me, Burley's like Harold Baines. He's a very good player, pitched for a long time, but he's not a great player. I mean, you know, Mark Burley 4 different times allowed the most hits as a starting pitcher in the American League. He also led the league twice in innings pitched. Yeah, he won a lot of Gold Gloves. So did Jim Catt. You know, Jim Catt was an elite defensive pitcher. He pitched more years than Burley, better ERA, more wins, more Gold Gloves. To me, Mark Burley is Jim Catt light. And if you're okay with Jim Catt light being in the Hall of Fame, then go for it. Joey D. Inventor. Love Stubbs bunting. Finally, we needed that. Joey D. Inventor. Just stop. I feel bad for Stubbs today. You know, the guy makes a really good throw down to second base. Trey Turner whiffs at it. I mean, completely just goes right by him. Stubbs makes another play, tries to throw a guy out, doesn't get him. I mean, the guy was playing his heart out today, and his teammates really weren't giving a lot of help around him defensively. Real quick, just some thoughts. You know, the U.S. Open say we got a line to that yesterday. I just wanted to give you guys a little update on the scoreboard for that event. Ricky Fowler and Xander Schauffele both open at 62 scores. So it looks like, at least for now, you know, Ricky Fowler is going to be in the conversation. It's still a little early. There's a lot of people still out on the golf course. So, but it's I told you guys about Bryson DeChambeau yesterday. I wouldn't be surprised about him. He's at -3 right now. Scottie Scheffler's at -3. Fowler and Schauffele are both at -8. Rory's at -3. Max Homa, the guy that Dave Weinberg, one of his picks, he's at -2. So it should be an interesting weekend at the U.S. Open out there in Los Angeles. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Phillies win. It's going to be a good game. Talk to you tomorrow.
The 2023 Phillies baseball season is here.
Got him looking. Strike 3. Fastball, 97 miles per hour. Dotted that outside corner. 8th strikeout of the game for Zach Wheeler.
And you can get the best Phillies coverage every day on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Kimbrel looking for back-to-back saves. The pitch. Got him swinging. Strike 3.
Can the Phillies make a return to the World Series? Tune in every day to find out and listen to what our Phillies insider Frank Close has to say. Tuesdays with the Phillies mailbag, when he answers your Phillies questions. And every day with Mike Gill on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.
1-1 pitch on the way. Swung on, lifted into right field. A flare will get down into right. Turner rounding first, going to second. He'll dive in head first safely. An RBI double for Trey Turner.
South Jersey's home for the best Philadelphia Phillies baseball coverage.